Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first ever virtual State of the City of Lompoc event. I'm Amber Wilson, President and CEO for the Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today we'll be joined by Lompoc Mayor Janelle Osborne for an insightful update on all things Lompoc. With the pandemic sweeping the nation and our community over the past year, we're all looking forward to hearing about Lompoc's challenges and successes. I anticipate a packed presentation since we haven't convened for a State of the City address since 2019 and never virtually. And hopefully this is the last time we'll have to meet this way. At this juncture, I'm sure you've all attended more than one Zoom webinar, but here are a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's meeting is being presented in webinar format, thus all attendees are muted and only panelists will be on video. There will be a Q&A after the presentation where I will present questions to Mayor Osborne. These questions were submitted by attendees prior to today's event. If you have a question that wasn't answered during the presentation, please email chamber@lompoc.com along with your contact information. I will forward questions to city staff for follow-up. You may also view a recording of this presentation on the city's YouTube channel after the event. And now, without further delay, let's welcome the Mayor of Lompoc, Janelle Osborne.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first State of the City address that is virtual and hopefully our last. It's been a difficult year for all of us, but we've been getting through it together the way Lompoc always has when we've dealt with a crisis. And I think it's important to start off with something very positive. And that positive for me is the new Beatty Park playground. We have a little video, all of it showing what we've done and how exciting it is. So we broke ground in August of 2020 on this new grant-funded playground and fitness area at Beatty Park. The playground at Beatty Park has the distinction of being the largest inclusive playground in Santa Barbara County. And I think that is something for all of us to be very proud of. In addition, Beatty has been named a triple national demonstration site park because it met the stringent design standards in 3 categories: inclusive playground design, youth play, and adult fitness. So on the site, you can see in the video that we have a workout area, and we have the ability for individuals that are in wheelchairs, leg braces, sight impairment can play on the different apparatuses at the park. The pavilion can be rented for birthday parties or anniversaries or family celebrations. And not in the video is a section that has a table tennis, checkers and chess area and benches to sit with a windbreak so that those of us bringing our kids or our grandkids can watch while they play or take a break during our fitness workout. It's really exciting for us, and we want to thank Great Western Installation for constructing the project and for the city staff working so well with them, utilizing Prop 68 grant funding to provide us with a brand new example of what we'd like all of our city parks to look like in the future. So first off, the city has been dealing with being closed for business to walk in the public. We never closed fully for business, unlike many other cities that completely shut down and worked remotely from home. Our city staff has always been present in all of our government buildings, and that includes City Hall. So while our shortage of staff and planning and building required appointments, we still met with the public and tried to accommodate rather than doing everything solely on the phone or via conference calls. We're a full service city, so that also means our water, electricity, wastewater, trash pickup, landfill, all of our city services continued to function. And we were very lucky not to have the COVID outbreak impact the delivering of these services, and we're able to maintain them and respond in appropriate manners when we had outages or issues. Utility billing and the Treasury Department and Finance Department need an extra special thanks during this time. We made a major transition to our billing system after utilizing a system that was over 30 years old. So they were still dealing with the old-fashioned green screens, and it was a major transition. And I want to thank you all for all of your patience as we made that transition and then had to do our due diligence to make sure we corrected any issues before we went live and sent you your first bill. Please don't hesitate to contact city staff with any questions or concerns as we move towards the new system. It does provide you the opportunity to pay online with no fee and set up the auto payments like we used to have. There are some additional kinks, but staff's happy to work through those with you. Police and fire have continued to provide emergency services despite their shortage of staff and being the frontline responders to the community during the pandemic. Our first concern was making sure both departments had as much PPE available to them so that we could protect them and our citizens as we moved through this. Last but not least, to all of our departments, whether it was the library or recreation, building or planning, any of our public works department, thank you all for continuing to provide the quality of service to our community that was expected prior to the pandemic and through the pandemic. I know that we can get through this and come out the other side with lessons learned and improved customer service and a better community. So there's a lot going on in our community despite the pandemic, and I'd like to show you a video of some of the things that are moving forward in our community. So we have continued to have plans submitted and permits pulled despite the pandemic. So between 2019, the last time we had this presentation, all of 2020, and as we're moving into 2021, our fire department reviewed over 500 building plans, 800 construction sites inspected, and had more than 1,500 site visits to remove weed abatement and nearly a 98% mitigation. This is very good news given our fire season and the drought situation we're in. It really helps protect our community. In 2020 alone, Lompoc Police Department received 17,000 911 calls and 64,700 administrative calls. This is a heavy load for a community our size, as well as an understaffed department. But we continue to take applications, review, and process and hire. So hopefully by end of year, we will be fully staffed in the police department again and can focus on reducing the impact the shortage has caused in our community. The library replaced its carpeting at the Lompoc and the Village Library during this time and applied and received more than $154,000 in grants and created a monthly newsletter that currently reaches over 8,000 patrons. Be sure and sign up for it as we reopen for all of the exciting programs that will eventually return to both locations. The library is such an important part of our community's gathering, support for those that need internet and resources for doing homework and work, and just being a place to meet and greet and relax with each other, as well as entertain ourselves. So thank you for continuing to provide all those services during the pandemic. The Public Works Department patched more than 112,000 square feet of pavement and continued to maintain the city's trees, ensure the airport was running continually and safely, and made repairs to our city facilities such as the police station and so much more. In the future, we hope to be able to make continued improvements and not have to worry about a pandemic interrupting our ability to do so. To those of you concerned about the trees, we've heard you loud and clear. Unfortunately, there was a period of time that trees were planted that are susceptible to several diseases in the area, and we are having to remove and replace them with newer trees that are not susceptible to those. It is a process that had been on hold, but forestry is now fully staffed and we are moving forward on those processes. So it's not a desire to eliminate, but to improve and provide healthy trees for our community rather than creating burdens. And finally, the city's building division issued more than 1,180 building permits and completed more than 3,920 inspections all with just one person. We are understaffed in the building department, and we are open for those positions to be filled. So be sure and let those know that are interested in these positions to apply. Exciting business projects are underway, and the final certificate of occupancy has been issued for the Community Health Center just in time to come out of the pandemic, as well as the 44 new homes up at the Y. Another group of projects that we anticipate to begin during this budget cycle are the Dutch Brothers and the Human Being coffee shops. These will both have drive-through options, which might help alleviate some of the backup we've seen for the Starbucks during this time. The Housing Authority received approval for 15 units that will allow to support the unhoused veterans in our community, and it will be next to the senior services and provide wraparound support services. We had 6 residential infill units, both single family and duplex applications come through, as well as the Castillo de Rosas 24 unit housing that will eventually break ground sometime this year, bringing more housing. There are ongoing housing availability being worked out in the city, and we look forward to more homes being built in the near future, and we'll update you as soon as those happen. With the reopening of our community happening as of June 15th, locations like Cold Coast Brewing and Flower City Ballroom and Event Center are an opportunity for us to get out and get together and be present and socialize. So we look forward to them finally being open to the public. We have some exciting additional unique things going on in our community. 233 mixed use development is going in, and that will have businesses on the bottom and residential on the top. And that is on H Street across from Solvang Brewing. We have some interesting additional industries coming to our community with the regulation of the cannabis industry. So there's the confidential biotherapy delivery and several other dispensaries coming online. There's the Mustang cannabis cultivation and the Organic Liberty cannabis cultivation. And Central Coast Agriculture is building a 40-acre campus in our community to become its world headquarters. Tire Pro moved into the former Dodge and Jeep dealership. And, well, Campbell Cooling is expanding and building a box warehouse, as well as Crocker Lockers mini storage. And last but not least, many of you have asked what's going on at Vaughn's. Well, I can confirm that it will not remain empty. There has been a request for a split. So 2 businesses will be coming to us. One is Boot Barn and the other is Aldi, a grocery store chain. So that will make sure that that neighborhood does not lose out on a walkable, close grocery store. You know, the exciting thing about the pandemic is it proved the need that we need to get outdoors and we need to connect with each other and support local businesses. And one way the council decided to support this was to bring back the Lompoc Community Outdoor Market. And I'm pleased to announce as of last Saturday, it had completely sold out and had many local vendors and walk-up COVID vaccine shots. Please get out and share in the community outdoor market on Saturdays from 9 to 3 in the parking lot next to the chamber. I look forward to seeing you all there and supporting our local businesses. So the future is looking brighter for our city as we emerge from the pandemic. Your vote to implement Measure A, sales tax, that happened just before the pandemic took over our community, really helped our city push through this challenging time. The sales tax will help us with any losses in the short term and has long-term applications for paying down our unfunded liability. The other opportunity that we have in order to support the community is the ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan that was funded by the federal government. We are receiving nearly $13 million. We provided a survey for the community to provide its input, and the Treasury recently released its mandates on how we may spend that money. Tomorrow night, we will have our first budget workshop to discuss not only our current budget, but how these ARPA monies might be spent in our community. We ask that you participate either in person at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall, via the phone where you can call 805-875-8201 and contribute questions or concerns, or send an email prior to 4 p.m. tomorrow to s_haddon@ci.lompoc.ca.us. Please participate. It is the only way we will know how the community feels about spending this additional nearly $13 million. Last but not least, again, I mentioned that we are nearly 50% down in a lot of our departments. So we have lots of open positions, and these open positions impact the service we can provide to the community. So please consider reviewing our open positions and recommend and support individuals applying for those so that we might be able to fully staff and provide the kind of support you, our community, needs as we recover from 2020. So we're working to reopen all our city buildings safely by June 15th, and we look forward to seeing all of your smiling faces back out in our community, in City Hall, at the library, at our events, and fully staffing our Parks and Rec programs again. Last but not least, a little more good, exciting news to look forward to. Remember that Mars launch? Well, we're going to get another major launch in September. The L9 Landsat launch is planning a current month-long festivities for us, a mural, trivia nights, educational opportunities, and then a day launch so that we can all watch it go up and not just listen to it like we did for the Mars launch. So, in closing, I want to remind you all that you're welcome to attend the budget workshop tomorrow evening and to continue to attend and come back into our city council meetings as they have reopened to the public. I want to thank the city staff for assisting with putting this presentation together and Chris Floyd for those drone videos. Last but not least, this recording will be available on TAP TV over the next month. They will publish a schedule of when that will be available on Channel 23 Comcast, and it will be posted on the city YouTube page with a link on our city website once it's ready. So thank you again for attending. I'm looking forward to us moving forward in a positive way, and I now look forward to Q&A with the Chamber CNO, Amber Wilson.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Osborne, for that presentation and all the exciting goings on in Lompoc. We did get several questions from attendees, and so we'll just start from the top. Our first questions are surrounding police staffing. First question, will we be able to raise the salaries of our policemen to match other cities in California? During the election, I remember reading that our police are paid the lowest salaries in the state.
That is an excellent question. And yes, the sales tax measure was presented as an opportunity to potentially be able to do that. So we will begin to hear from staff tomorrow evening on the budget about what our abilities are after passing that sales tax. Unfortunately, the council majority during last summer decided to set aside all of the additional sales tax revenue to pay down our CalPERS unfunded liability. And while it does save us $20 million over the next 15 years, unfortunately that $20 million isn't sitting in an account somewhere where we can access. But each budget cycle, which for us is a 2-year budget cycle, odd years, so 2021 through 2023 and so on, staff will be able to tell us how much money we may have saved from aggressively paying down CalPERS and what those additional funds might look like and present opportunities for us to spend those. At that time, we may be able to pay better for our police department. So it is an opportunity. It is an option. According to staff currently, without hearing from CalPERS, because they haven't given us a new adjustment for that reset or coming out of the pandemic and how their funds have been affected, therefore our funds and their investments, it is a $1 to $2 million additional funds availability from not having to pay on the CalPERS debt for approximately the next 7 years. And after those 7 years, if it continues along the way we've predicted based on CalPERS, giving us better numbers. At 7 years, all of the sales tax funding will aggressively pay down. So we're hoping to be in a healthy situation and be able to sustain it. But there may be some other opportunities along the way. So continue to watch for discussions of pension bonds and how we might be able to do it in other ways as well. But it is a major concern for this council, and we do want to find a way to do that so that we aren't just a training ground.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that. And I think this question will probably have a similar answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Will we be able to put money into assisting the police with staff who can outreach and are trained to support the communities and neighborhoods? Is that a similar answer?
Yeah, again, that is really dependent on, what revenue we have available outside of meeting the minimum budget needs to maintain current staffing. So there are some opportunities with some of the new funding coming from the federal government that is being issued to the county and to the states that address these social issues, that address some of the impact we've put on police department that we all agree the police shouldn't be responsible for. And I think it will be important for partners, both at the county and the state and the federal level, but nonprofits and others to come forward with concepts and ideas that are sustainable and that the funding isn't one time, and then we'd be happy to consider it. And again, it takes a council majority to agree to implement these.
So use your voice, basically.
Please, we want you to participate.
Yes. Okay, moving on, our next question is about annexation. Will it ever be possible for Vandenberg Village to incorporate into Lompoc and become part of the city?
Absolutely. So in the past, the city of Lompoc did attempt annexation. It failed. That was well over 30 years ago, if not more. The methodology currently, if they are interested in doing so, would be for those neighborhoods to put together a petition stating they would like to be annexed and gather the signatures, which would then demand that it be put on a ballot and voted. If the area that is unincorporated and abuts us votes to be annexed, that starts the annex process, and we would happily welcome. It would change our statistics overnight if we were not looked at just at our city limits. It would be helpful, but many businesses, organizations, the census, all kinds of ways that we get funding, just look at our city limits and don't factor in that these unincorporated built out areas abut us and have maybe higher property tax, have a higher education average, have a higher pay average. When those are factored in, we're seen as a larger community and can attract businesses like Trader Joe's or a Target. But most of these corporations just look at city limits, and that does limit what we can attract and appeal. We can sell ourselves and we can educate them and we can provide that additional information. But again, sometimes it doesn't match with what their data and research finds. So yes, I welcome that. I think it would change our community dramatically and very quickly and provide us the kind of support we need for providing services and change their ability to have a voice. Right now, they have a voice, they just don't have a vote, and I would welcome that. But again, at this point in time, I would say those neighborhoods need to work on petition to annex and get it on a ballot and vote themselves in.
Fantastic, thank you. So we have two questions surrounding the homeless issues. What is the city's plan, both short-term and long-term, to manage the growing homeless population?
So I want to reiterate that homelessness is not a crime. There are criminals that hide amongst and are in the homeless community, but being homeless itself is not a crime. This is a complex issue with no simple answer. It requires so many different issues to be addressed, and not all of them are under the city's ability to address or under our financial control. So the state is impacting us on their housing decisions, and the cost of building a house is being impacted by the lumber industry and metal supplies and shipping and exporting. So that slows down what's available in order to help them be housed. And then the county is the responsible department for issues like public health, public housing, and social issues. They're the ones funded for that. So we must work in partnership with them and advocate for our needs of our community. So those plans have been begun. The county has put together a countywide homeless plan for the first time. It took 3 years. The city of Lompoc joined in approval of that 2 meetings ago, or 2 meetings ago, so we just had a meeting last night. And that's key because we were each trying to tackle this program in a vacuum and fight with the county. And instead, this gives us an opportunity to all address all the issues and try not create impacts on each other, whether Santa Barbara creating an impact on us or us creating an impact on Yuleton and Santa Ynez. This way, we're coming at it through the entities that can and do have the money to solve it, and then what we're doing. In the city itself, there are rules on the books that allow us to enforce, parking on the street, where you park, how you park. It's been difficult to enforce those because the Supreme Court's 9th District Court had a lawsuit that said you cannot tell someone to not sleep in their car unless there are shelter or beds available. So our shelters are always full. And one of the ways to address that is the safe parking program. So we have discussed and implemented, and hopefully we'll get that off the ground in partnership with New Beginnings in the next few months. And this will allow us to better enforce some of the parking issues. The Riverbed Cleanup, yes, it cost us $500,000. Our failure as a council was to maintain that, and we did not set those funds aside. So we will have to address that again. It is a multi-layer discussion between city and county and what funds we can use and how to approach it. We were seen as a success across the state for how we handled the initial cleanup and eviction of those in the riverbed, but our failure to maintain that has recreated the problem. And so we will need to address that again, and hopefully this time plan for the ongoing maintenance of that. So that will be a continued discussion. And again, expect the public to participate. Expect you to come out and express concerns and help us address this issue and this time maintain the issues. And then working in partnership with our local schools and businesses to identify paths to better paying jobs, retention, so that those around us have the jobs and can afford the housing, and find a way to help reduce the increasing effect of limited housing and not having a transitional set of housing. So those that have been in low income can move into those middle income housing and open up more of the low income. We're missing that, what they call middle missing housing. And hopefully that production will start soon, and we'll begin to see 300, 400, or 500 homes come online to help us with sort of the transition through housing as you become stable and want to move through. So again, it's very complex, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of different partners on different sections of it.
Definitely complex. So there was a question about motorhomes on city streets. So is that the same requirement there, where homelessness isn't a crime, so they can park?
For some of it. So we do have some individuals who are unhoused but have an RV, and so they have chosen to park on public streets. And so part of moving that along would be to have a safe parking program and having designated spots that are big enough for RVs and have the ability to allow for the waste to be collected properly instead of released onto our city streets, or getting over to the dump station at our River Park. But the other part about just RVs being parked on the street, that would take us reviewing our parking ordinance and considering a process which might mean, registering your RVs or having a location that is city designated for storing RVs to assist with all of the lots that are already filled. So those lots that do exist where you can store are pretty much maxed out. So there's a couple of different ideas that will be brought forward to council to consider, and we want to make it easy and supportive so those that own RVs can enjoy them, but those that are feeling the impact of having them take up parking spaces or block views or create issues in their neighborhoods have a means to address it and be respectful of each other.
Thank you. So there are a couple of questions about city maintenance. Why is the city not maintaining city streets with overgrown brush?
Well, we just recently finally filled a lot of our positions in those areas that do this maintenance. They work in teams and they're backlogged. So we are working to try and get it done as quickly as possible. And again, the initial is just recovery before we can get back into maintenance. The second part is, again, if there's an area that you'd like to see cleaned up and you want to organize a volunteer group, and there's a path to do this. So please feel free to reach out to our community development department and our beautification commission to talk about an opportunity if you want to see something happen sooner. But again, over the past 3 years, we've been short-staffed in our urban forestry, in our parks maintenance, in our streets. And so getting back up to staff, getting back onto a proper rotation and getting it done is a goal of ours, and it's just going to take us a bit of time. So we appreciate your patience, but we'll get there.
I'm going to bounce back to a public safety question.
Okay.
This is a little lengthy, so bear with me. Shootings, thefts, and petty crime are steadily increasing in Lompoc, making it feel very unsafe. What is the short and long-term plan for those items promised on the ballot initiative, I-2020, specifically to maintain and improve public services, including neighborhood police patrols, firefighter staffing, gang enforcement, crime and vandalism prevention? With the difficulty in recruiting and time involved in training, it will likely be years before we are fully staffed. What can we expect as far as increased safety in the city now?
Wow, that is a very good question. And, this is a number one issue for me, has been since I ran for election, is public safety. And yes, many of the statements are true that were pointed out. Yes, I-2020 was phrased, that's additional sales tax, was phrased that we could use this money for doing exactly these things. Some of us on council last summer advocated for using some of the funds to address these things proactively and not set aside all the funds for paying down the CalPERS debt. Council majority decided to put all the money towards paying down the CalPERS debt. They did reinstate 3 positions at the police department, which is very helpful, but that's only $300,000, and that's an ongoing cost. That's not improving things. I will say that, again, each budget cycle, as a result of paying down this debt, will free up $1 to $2 million at the minimum. We may see more depending on the economy's recovery. And at that time, council will discuss how to use those additional funds, and they can be utilized to improve our public safety via additional pay, additional programs. And what does that look like? Is it solely through hiring more officers, or is it a different program? Is it improving the safety at a park or on street lights? What could the impact be that supports the public safety? I think there's other opportunities as well to help fund some of the needs. And so we're going to have to look at those, whether that's some of the federal funding that's coming through, whether it's partnership with groups that are addressing some of these issues that would take the burden off our public safety, or it's groups like those that are out there working on our community now and volunteering and helping them see the path of what the partnership with the city looks like, and protecting both their assets and our assets in the community at large who's volunteering. So I wish there was a simple answer to say that thank you for passing the sales tax, and we've set aside 50% to do X and 50% to pay down CalPERS. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. And so it makes it a little more difficult, but I promise you I'm looking at other methodologies to find a way to fund those public safety issues, and we'll continue to do so.
Another complex answer to a complex problem.
Unfortunately, nothing is a simple yes or no in the modern world, and I hate to have to say that, but it's complex. It takes a lot of work and a lot of partners.
Rolling on, Lompoc is set to receive approximately $13 million in American Rescue Plan funding, potentially the largest one-time infusion of funds the city has ever seen. The decisions made in the coming weeks will possibly determine whether the city merely enjoys a brief stimulus or seeds a new trajectory of inclusive economic growth for our community. Is the city willing to pivot and work with the community partners in the coming weeks in order to take the most strategic approach possible to these funding allocations?
That's a great question, and you're absolutely right. It is an opportunity, and that is what it's designed for, is to help bring back an economic stimulus to our community. Participating in the budget workshop is the first step. So attending or emailing or calling in with your ideas and suggestions is very important. Who those partners are, what the most strategic is depending on council majority's decision and the input they hear from the community. There's also, while not a lot, there are parameters that the Treasury has issued that we must follow in order to spend these funds. So staff is getting up to speed on those. That just came out last week. So we had the survey issued and we have our ideas, but we're now matching those ideas with the survey results from the budget discussion tomorrow night and the rules coming out of Treasury as to how we can spend those monies. It will come into tranches, as I like to say. One half of it will come now, and a year from now we will get the other half. And in between, we may hear that some of the rules are being tightened or changed between the first payment and the second payment. They are able to audit us at any time about how we spend this money, and if we fail to meet their criteria, we might have to repay it. So you're right. How we utilize it can make the difference on whether it's a short-term implementation and just a shot in the arm, or do we have programs put aside that allow incentives and something that has a longer impact. Again, we have to spend all these funds by 2024. We can't set up some sort of loan that comes back because we have to spend it. So if we do something, it needs to be a grant so that it's spent. There are a lot of complications again to this. Not as many as in prior funding, but we will have this as an ongoing discussion. So I welcome everyone again to start with the budget workshop tomorrow night. Participate either by sending an email to s_Haddon, HADDON @ci.lompoc.ca.us or calling 805-875-8201 during the meeting's public comment tomorrow evening, or coming in person and sharing your ideas and concepts. I'm sure that this will not be the only budget workshop or the only discussion, because this is a big decision. It is a big impact on our community, and it's most important that we hear from all of you, as many of you, about your ideas, your concepts, your desires for what you'd like to see done with it. And if we can accomplish it, 3 of us need to agree, if not all 5 of us, to get it done. And it's really important that it impact as many in the community as possible.
So this is our last question. Why not create a horse and bicycle trail along the riverbed from Lompoc to Buellton with the CARES funding that the city has received during the COVID-19 pandemic?
That's a great idea. Again, this is part of an opportunity that we have with the ARPA money, is to look at how do we create and generate potential economic impacts to recovery from the pandemic. So creating an opportunity where people come out and connect and socialize is one way to recover from the pandemic. Creating a tourist opportunity that attracts people and visits our community and helps with our TOT and our sales tax is really important. Again, these ideas are what we're looking for. We want to hear from the community. We need to have a robust discussion about ideas and concepts that can help our economy recover, that can both impact those that live here and are trying to recover from the closure of businesses, the loss of jobs, the risk of losing housing because of not having that job, and how to protect that. We need to have discussions about how this money might create support for new money coming in. Tourism money is, in the economist term, is free money. It's people coming in and leaving their money behind, but not creating a long-term burden on our community. So anytime we have an opportunity to welcome tourists to our community, to stay in our hotels, dine in our restaurants, shop in our stores, use our facilities like our parks and our pool, we create a revenue stream with reduced impact. Those also create jobs. Supporting new and creative jobs in the technology era. We need to move past always just being a service industry community, and how do we attract retain jobs that are more diverse and of a better pay scale. One way we've done that is by having a free market for the cannabis industry and not putting limits on the permits. And so you're beginning to see that impact. That's also driving a need for housing, and that's an economic impact. So is there something we can use some of those funds to assist with the housing needs? Again, these are great questions, great ideas. I want to hear more of them. I really welcome our community to come out, share the ideas. I appreciate everyone taking the survey. That will be a help for us. But again, it doesn't have to be just what was on the survey. There are other concepts and ideas being done by other communities. And I want to make sure that we take a broad approach that sets us up for success rather than a one-time shot in the arm.
I like that. I think that's important because I know the survey gives an opportunity with a multiple choice checklist, but doesn't really give community members the opportunity to openly share, ideas. And
we did leave
that reminder that they can email their ideas or go to council and share them. So that way, you're having the benefit of receiving all those ideas and making the best decisions possible for Lompoc in the future.
Yeah, the survey did have an area where you could add comments, and we will collect those and see those there. But you're right; it was a limited space and a limitation to how much information we could collect. So we did give you the opportunity to type in suggestions and submit them. But just because the survey was done doesn't stop the discussion. It's an ongoing discussion. In fact, we'll have two discussions because we start and we say the first 6 million will be spent this way, and we've got a year to plan for the next 6 million. And we have through, like I said, 2024 to spend it. So we may stage it so that we might come up with matching dollars in some way to make it go further. It's not required, but maybe we can get more out of it with combining something from a Prop 64 grant with something in a park, or a DOJ grant with something that's needed in public safety. So, our difficulty, again, is being short-staffed and trying to get up to speed on this. So I've spent a lot of time attending the workshops, reading through the 151 pages of the Treasury's documentation on this, trying to understand myself so that I can be an advocate for our community, our local organizations, our issues in public safety in the parks, and really set us up for long-term success, not just the short term of what are we doing this year. So I really appreciate everyone attending. I appreciate all these great questions. I know that this presentation has probably created more questions. As Amber said, I highly encourage you to email her. And while we are, again, limited in staff, we will do our best to create a response and post a fact sheet of responses to additional questions that we can post on our city website and you can access, or potentially turn into a response that goes out through the Chamber's newsletter. So I thank the Chamber for hosting this. I thank you all for attending this. And again, I thank city staff for their support in getting this done, and all of us juggling. Amber being the only staff where she's at, the city having limited staff. And so your patience with the virtual presentation is very much appreciated. And like I said, I'm hopeful that next year is in person with the option to tune in remotely, but not mandated. Have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you all and hearing from you all at tomorrow night's budget workshop. Thanks, Amber.
Thanks, Janelle. Okay, everybody. Well, this concludes our 2021 virtual State of the City presentation. As Janelle said, you can email chamber@lompoc.com if you have questions that didn't get addressed in today's presentation. Those will be forwarded on to the city for follow-up. And also you can view this recording on the city's YouTube channel as well after. I think it'll take a couple of days for them to get that posted. And I certainly appreciate your attendance today. And I think the overlying message in today's presentation was to get out there, use your voice, talk to council, and be heard so you can influence the decisions that affect our community the most. So again, thanks for attending today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.